It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a weekly podcast where we talk about everything that's great. Like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Brian.
And this week, we're back after a 2-week break, or at least I am, as we'll get into it in a second, with a mind-blowing Thunderbolts trailer, where we'll talk about Star Wars Underworld, and you'd be forgiven to not know what that is, would have cost $40 million per episode, Brian. And we'll I've got some rough math when we get into that. How 60 episodes for people who want to do it themselves. Just do a little math there. You'll see how much this would have cost at the end of the day. Shang-Chi 2 is rumored to start production soon, and more. For those who are just tuning in for the first time, we have a guest host here, Brian Smith himself, sitting in for Mike. Mike is sick, for those who are curious. He's under the weather. He traveled. We got to hang out last weekend together. I took him down to Buc-ee's. Brian, you ever been to a Buc-ee's?
Oh, it's been a long time, but I have been to a Buc-ee's.
Yeah, so he got to go for the first time. Took him down there. It was really interesting because it was a lot of talk about some superhero stuff and a lot of food. Like, you know, when we discussed what's everyone love to talk about, snacks and food. So we probably ate a little too well on that trip through and through, but it was a good time. But Brian, thank you for sitting in today. I really, really appreciate the short notice in your turnaround for us.
No problem. Always thrilled to be on the podcast.
Yes. We're going to talk about, I'll save it for, I got some anecdotes about Spider-Man for me and Brian to share with everybody later that I always like to tell everybody. But in the meantime, Brian, we have a history together. You've been on the show before, obviously, but for those who may not have remembered, we have been, since the first day of college, which would be coming up on 20 years ago this year, you essentially gave me my first real comic books, not the cheap Dollar Tree ones that I had growing up, which we talked about actually earlier this week, the weird Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Archie.
The Archie ones, yeah.
Yeah, that had intergalactic wrestling, but you gave me a disc of Marvel Civil War comic books to read, and you were like, I think you might enjoy these. And
that's right.
About a week later, I had read all of them, and then more than you'd probably read in your life. So I blame all my financial loss on you, Brian, for this.
I happily accept that burden. You definitely did outpace me reading through Civil War, and I remember having to pick up the pace to make sure I could even talk about it.
Yeah. And one of the trailers we'll talk about, features a character Sentry that we both absolutely
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely think we've talked about the Sentry never getting his own MCU movie and how impossible this movie that's about to come out appears to be.
Yes, we never would have put money on it at all along the way. Then Brian and I also started essentially what I would call like the alpha or beta version of Superhero Slate with Comic UI for several years, right? We were in that the typing versus the audio. The audio is much quicker. I can talk about it faster. I can type all this stuff up in a week. So absolutely awesome. But you've recently been doing some artwork, selling some T-shirts, putting them on TeePublic and some other work. So I put a link in here in our show notes to Linktr.ee for punreliable. But tell us about what you've been working on.
Yeah, thanks. Linktree punreliable, like unreliable with a P, is my website where I'm hosting. I'm working on a children's book called Put Put Purr Purr, that features 4 cats from my family that go miniature golfing together. And I wrote that. Got the idea from my 4-year-old nephew, who was angry when everyone went golfing, and his mom pointed out everybody didn't go golfing, the cat didn't, and he just thought that was a blast. So working on that, hoping to have that released in the first half of this year. But it also has a link on there to my t-shirt site on TeePublic, and uh, some other links to some other art-related projects that I'm working on as well.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Like I've been on the journey with Brian for most of this the artwork for the shirts, the cat stuff. As a cat father myself, Brian. I understand that. I appreciate it. So it's fun. It's been a fun journey watching Brian do this. So absolutely, if you guys get a chance to check out the link, and then whenever you get the book available, Brian will make sure to let people know and find a place to support you on that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for showing up today again. I do appreciate that. So let's jump in to some news. So first and foremost, we've got some Fantastic Four news. Fantastic Four definitely, I would say, realistically, one of the most hyped movies I have for this year, Brian. Simply because it's a unique period. It's a unique style. It's visually different. It's something that the Marvel hasn't really had success with, or I guess Fox and the company that owns Fantastic Four previously did not have any success with since 1994, and a lot of people are like, is it even relevant? But they seem to be breaking the mold and doing something fun and cool. And what I have in the show notes for everyone to check out and look at is a link to the Fantastic Four First Steps concept art, where they mentioned that it was inspired by Disneyland's Tomorrowland. And if you're a fan of Disney, you can catch the Fantastic Four, not necessarily cast, but like the park versions of these characters in the parks later this summer. So love going to Disney. Probably won't go to see the Fantastic Four, but here's some concept art, Brian. And if you've got it pulled up, we can go through them kind of real quick, one by one, if you wanted to.
Sure, I have it in
Yeah.
sort of city skyline.
Yeah. So the first one, it's essentially what New York looks like now, I guess, a little bit, right? But with that, they've added on some of these, I would say, retro futuristic arches, like in the front here with the monorail. In the back, there's some more arches as it kind of goes into the city. So they're like really leaning into white curves. There's like, looks like little poles that like are standing up that have like greenery on top, like maybe like elevated parks. And some cool stuff is like the cop car, like the Jetsons flying cars looking here in the front and out in the city.
I was going to say what really jumps out at me the most is how long it takes me to notice there are flying cars. It's an impressive image because your eyes dart around to a lot of cool things, and I think the flying cars are pretty cool. But it's fascinating how long it takes you to pick them out.
Yeah. And what's cool about concept art, there's a lot of negativity surrounding the word AI, and I don't think that these images are AI, but like concept art is low res, right? Like they're not spending hours and hours and time and money to draw something that they may not choose at the end of the day. So you can kind of see what looks to be like a crushed New York City, and this is not AI generated. I just want to put that out. Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's kind of like AI generated, but like this is cool to see some of this concept art of what they were visualizing New York would look like in the movie.
Yeah, that's interesting. Having not had AI exist very long for, with this image generation being a newer thing, I had not really thought about the idea that people could sort of see concept art as AI generated. But to me, this is vastly different.
Yeah. And you kind of, and we see that a little more if you go into the second one. If you typed generic city skyline, into the, just even Google, that's probably what you get. But there's a couple of cool things here. It's an image from inside the like possibly like the Baxter Building's like living unit, and they really have taken from the 60s here because it's got like the recessed couches, like the conversation pit or whatever they're called here. The fireplace is down the middle. Everything's spherical. Everything is circular. There's curves to everything. There's no hard edges on anything that's quote unquote futuristic. Because you can see the stuff in the background with the squares and the lines all looks very what we see today. But there's a building there that kind of looks like the League of
Oh yeah, the Legion of Doom.
Legion of Doom's building a little bit there, but like kind of white. You get to see Reed and Sue and the Thing, Ben Grimm. But like the cool thing about Ben, even this is concept art. This is probably very old concept art because the actors aren't drawing the likenesses here, is that Ben has always had it when they were doing the artwork and they were trying to like, what does the thing look like? He's always had that huge rocky eyebrow on it, right? Like the old comic books had. And I love that
Yes.
that look about him.
Yeah, he's also wearing a sweater, which we've seen in the trailers for this movie, but I just can't get over seeing the thing in a shirt. It's a very funny image to me, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah. The next one is probably one of the more eclectic images that kind of goes with that first one, and this is like the city level version of what New York is, and you get to see their futuristic monorail in the background, which feels like the monorail at Disneyland or Disney World, right? Which is cool.
Sure.
There's people and little motorcycles with bubbles, but there's also regular cars and taxis. And what's cool is you get to see a little NYPD robot. So like the Herbie bot is kind of like a Herbie version of the police robots there. And then on the right hand side is like the real Herbie, the white one crossing the street there. So they're leaning into that. It's a robot, but it's analog, right? The wheels,
Yes.
the tape and wheels are making the eyes. And it feels like a vision. Brian, what do you think?
Oh, totally agree. There's a slight, this looks like an oil painting feel to this image too that I don't really get in the first two, and that really kind of, I don't know, not in a Norman Rockwell, but in an Americana, old world kind of. It looks like the past.
If Alex
There are these.
Ross did like a very, very
Ooh,
fast drawing, like you know what
yeah,
I'm
that's a
saying?
good analogy.
Yeah,
Um, there's a cool use of like old technology in this too. Like the theater on the right has old light bulbs all around its marquee, and there's even like a reel-to-reel player on the uh, top robot that you mentioned.
yeah.
Um, but then again, there's some flying cars in the image. It's a very cool mix of uh, the future and the past.
Yeah, what they thought the future would be, right? In the 60s.
Sure,
Again, Jetsons. If the Jetsons were on the land instead of the sky, I think this is what it would look like when they did the Jetsons.
sure.
And then the last image, real fast. It's another interior. Looks to be Sue Storm in there, but again, I'm gonna lean into the conversation pits. This maybe
Yep.
looks like the bedroom. It's also circular. They love round things in the future. You can kind of see the shower there, the vanity, the closets, the bed, and then the conversation pit, which is just crazy. And the colors, the orange colors. If I was to think back to my grandparents' house growing up, Brian, and the stuff they carried over from the 50s and 60s, it would be this bright orange.
Yeah, this orange wood I think doesn't exist anymore. It was completely used up in houses in the suburbs in the 60s.
Yeah. And it matches the orange fabric on the couch as well, which those cushions are probably the most uncomfortable cushions known to man.
They are the only corners that I see are on that. The only hard edges look like they're on those cushions.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean this concept art's fun. Again, it's tying into the upcoming the parks, the release. This is the end of July. It'll be San Diego Comic-Con. I would love to. I think this is Disneyland as well because I think that Disney World still has like the Marvel stuff with Universal deals, right? Which is weird. But I would love to see. I would love to see some really cool Avengers campus stuff kind of come out of this retro futuristic vibe along the way. And maybe even the MCU proper. If the Fantastic Four come over and they merge into the MCU proper, as is rumored post Secret Wars, they could bring some of those design choices. Because the Fantastic Four are always like, we're helping the world, right? We're doing the foundation to make the world a better place. And I think that'd be cool to incorporate that in there.
Yeah, that I could definitely see how that like they were the the Fantastic Four seemed to be the least interested in the superhero game once they got their powers in the Marvel world. They yeah, like Chris said, they were people who like to help other people and make the world better, and I feel like they could definitely have like a tour guide or park guide kind of vibe to ushering the MCU into Disney World.
Yeah, and obviously with the fact that Tomorrowland is still like a part of Disney World, right? With like the People Mover and all the other things they have, they could easily adjust that, give it a fresh coat of paint, if you will.
Yeah, the Fantastic Four was kind of Marvel's original hit back in the '60s, and the movies have kind of floundered since then. And I feel I have a good feeling going into this one, seeing some of this concept art and the casting photos, and yeah.
Yeah, they say they're Marvel's first family, Ryan, but that's my segue into the next topic, which is the Thunderbolts, which is probably their first dysfunctional family in the MCU.
There you go.
Along the way, so we got a new trailer for this earlier this week, or maybe even last week, and this is a trailer that shows us the weird places that this movie is going to go, Brian. What I really love about it is a couple things before we get into details. Number one, it's a trailer called Absolute Cinema, and what it is telling, what it does that I don't think any other Marvel trailer has done, at least not in a while, is literally say, here's the stars, here's the writers, here's the cinematographer, here's the production designer, here's the editor, and the composers. Like, they're literally like the team that build this is a first class team, right? And there's not a lot of dialogue or even like character development in the trailer. It's just a very energetic kind of electronic sound, like song that kind of gives me John Wick vibes a little bit, if I'm going to be honest. And it's first with some like flashy, not flashy, but like there's scenes where like the text is like kind of like a grindhouse style kind of text on the screen.
Sure.
So they're really giving it something different here, and I as we know, this century will be in here, Brian. So I always have to say I'm biased. I know I'm biased. I'm very excited for this, but this is going to be, I think, a fun little jaunt outside of what we're used to at Marvel as well. What do you think?
Yeah, last year we didn't, we had Deadpool and Wolverine, but we didn't have our MCU proper feeling move us towards the end of Phase 4, Phase 5, type multiversal threat vibe in it. And we very quickly have come back to normality feeling with Captain America, and Thunderbolts has me right back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the crew has an interesting dynamic. I can't wait to see play off of each other.
Yes,
in the movies.
Yeah, Red Guardian is very much a fan of the Winter Soldier. I get a big kick out of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that history there, like the Winter Soldier probably doesn't know him very much, or at least doesn't remember him. He's the adopted father of Yelena as well. We get to see the return of Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp, which, a character that was, that movie kind of sits in a weird place where it's like, it feels like that was like a family movie, like for kids kind of thing. It's humorous. The whole family can watch it. Your grandma is going to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, but not really, be confused or offended by it at the end of the day. So we get to see her return into like more of an, I wouldn't say an assassin, but maybe mercenary role. John Walker, right? Not really underutilized in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Taskmaster, and again, another remnant of Black Widow films, and then there's Bob. And Julie Louis-Dreyfus as Val.
Oh yes.
Just drinking water in this trailer, just having a big gulp of water, which is really fun. There's something about this I can't put my finger on. I think it's the grindhouse feel of this trailer that's really kind of selling me a little bit.
Yeah, I was glad to hear what you said about the trailer earlier, both in terms of the grindhouse vibe. There's sort of like almost like the color filters are separating as the text is held up on screen. I get like the projector is malfunctioning kind of vibe from grindhouse is a very apt description of that. The vibe of the trailer is very unique for Marvel, considering how much it leans into what other movies that are not comic book movies these actors and directors have all been a part of. I loved seeing it. I didn't know a lot of these references, so it was interesting to see how much film knowledge is going into this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, as seen in our thumbnail, Bucky punches a guy in a chicken suit towards the end of this trailer, and that's not the thing I expected to see in this movie, Brian. Like, this was a movie, like all the other trailers have been like, oh, they're enemies for a bit. They punch each other, and then they have to be friends at the end to defeat whatever the villain is. But like they're kind of saying like there's gonna be some wacky stuff in here. Knowing, obviously Yelena, Florence Pugh from Midsummer, which is an unsettling film along the way. The composers of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was another zany kind of movie.
Yeah.
Hereditary is the production of Hereditary, which is a horror film. So there's a lot of people coming into this with different things, and I can't put my finger on it, but it feels fun. Like we know the Century's probably going to be in here, but I'd be excited to watch the movie and kind of see how it plays out for this team along the way.
Yeah, but between the characters that we know but didn't see a lot of, and now having them interact together, and the idea of the Century showing up, let's not forget the asterisk in the movie title. There's quite a little bait that this movie's dropping out. That's I don't know, lead me to the hook.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be delivering us something good here. I think it needs to kick off, with that. Like I said, Captain America, just landed. I think it'll probably be on streaming soon. Daredevil's popping off on Disney Plus. Marvel's got a strong lineup through the rest of the year. But the asterisk on the name is like the asterisk for the year. Some of these projects were, greenlit and made. Mostly the Disney Plus stuff during the Bob Chapek of more is more kind of mandate. So we'll see if some extra time can make these better. I also just like Bucky. Like, anytime Bucky Sebastian Stan's in a movie, he tends to elevate it just a hair, right? Like he's been in Marvel since 2011, since the first Captain America, but he was just more of a young guy, and it just seems to be enhancing every time he shows up, right? So
yeah, he's really grown as a character, and I'm excited to see where his story goes.
Yeah, I feel I had this theory. I don't know if I posited it to you or even on the show. We got to see, Captain America 2, Brave New World, Sam Mackie, he's got the shield. But if there's other universes, and at the end maybe another Captain America shield makes an appearance from like another universe, Bucky could take on like, another kind of Captain America. Like they have two Captain Americas, Brian. Like they've never, like they've done that in the comic books all the time. Like, yeah, we can have several of these dudes floating around. So I would love to see him kind of take up that role as a leader as well. Maybe he could be the Captain America or the leader of these the rumored new Avengers that might rise out of this.
Sure. Yeah, definitely agree that top of the show we were talking Civil War, and I think that's around the time Bucky was Captain America, so it's like I do feel a kinship to the Bucky being Captain America story, but Anthony Mackie did a pretty phenomenal job last month, so not looking to see him hang up his wings anytime soon either.
Yeah, and I don't.
It'd be cool to see.
It would feel cheap for him to hand it off as well. Like it wouldn't
Agreed.
be earned or like because he's already said he didn't want it several times. We know you don't want it. We get that part of him. So, but it would be fun. Like, yeah, we need like it needs to be more of us, like kind of thing, right? So, and John Walker was the Captain America for a little bit until he disgraced himself in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So, a little bit of connectivity there. Moving on, Brian. Let's move on to the next. So the next thing is one of the greatest actors of all time, Vin Diesel.
That's right.
And he is recently shared on Instagram. I just put the link in there that he got back from the Oscars and he's working on all these movies. And I don't know if he's actually working on any movies, Brian, because I'm yet to see any kind of come to fruition here. But he specifically calls out Disney wants their Planet X, which some say is Marvel's most anticipated movie. Haha, the film where Groot returns to his home planet. The fact that you have to tell me that that's where Groot comes from tells me that's not your most anticipated movie. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's a very interesting thing for Vin Diesel to call that out. I would say, tinfoil hat on here, Mike, he's positing himself to see if people react to this. Like, hey, if I mention Planet X and Groot, maybe they'll give me a solo project or Guardians 4 where I can do more with my character. But like nobody's really excited for it except him because he wants people to react to it. What do you think?
I think that's a pretty good theory. As I was looking through the show notes at the topics, the Planet X bullet point was where I thought we were done talking Marvel, and I did have to read the bullet point to realize that, oh no, that's the place where Groot came from. So, as much as I've loved Groot and Vin Diesel's performance as Groot, Planet X was not a name that jumped out at me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would also say, he's been doing the I Am Groot little animated spin-offs. So, like, maybe they give him, like a 20-minute little animated thing for Planet X. Like, maybe make it animated. Not, like, it could be Marvel adjacent, but I don't need a whole movie about his origin story. We just did Rocket's origin story. We did Star-Lord's origin story. We've done Gamora's origin story. All the Guardians have gone through. Groot, yeah, fascinating, but... it needs to be a good story first, but just saying everybody wants to see it in the social media post doesn't sell me on it as much.
Yeah, I would agree.
So maybe he'll get something small and Disney Plus, Disney XD related. Who knows? We'll see. But we'll keep you guys posted if we hear more about that. But I'll bring you back in to some another Marvel topic, Brian. In November 2026 movie for Marvel is likely to be Shang-Chi 2 or Black Panther 3. And that's based on the rumor or the scoopers a couple weeks ago. And some people say it's most likely to be Black Panther 3 as Daniel Cretton, who's a Shang-Chi director, is actually the director for Spider-Man 4, which is going on right now as well. So I don't think he'd have a July movie and then a November movie next year.
Wow, yeah, that does seem unlikely.
And that's even if he's returning, there's no guarantee he is. But also, there was like that, when Gladiator 2 came out, Denzel was like, yeah, they wrote me a role in Black Panther 3. So I think a script is probably more along the lines of being completed for Black Panther 3 than Shang-Chi 2 when this news dropped, if you will.
Sure, yeah, that Denzel connection definitely pushes me towards Black Panther 3 more, and both of these franchises have kind of been quiet since their last film, so I do think there's people that are anticipating both, but yeah, like you mentioned, Cretton doing Spider-Man 4, that does seem more likely that they're talking Black Panther.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw a curveball at you because here's the newest rumors as of this week. Is that Marvel has created a production company called Atlas in the UK. And the way it works in movie productions, they create smaller production companies with names that refer to other things, usually in the movie, to make them. They don't say, hey, this is Marvel's Black Panther 3, or hey, this is Marvel Shang-Chi. They make a sub-company, and that's how they do all the paperwork, taxes, all this fun stuff. Now, does Atlas mean that this is the Greek gods version of Atlas? That's the first thing I thought of, Brian. Thor 4, right? Like, it's like a Thor 5 movie where they come off the back of, like, Zeus being upset at the end of that and doing Atlas. So that was one thing I kind of thought of. But the rumors continue, Mike, that the Atlas Foundation will be part of Shang-Chi 2. And you may know the Agents of Atlas from the comic books.
Yes, that's where the name Atlas has the most. That's where it rings in my memory is the Agents of Atlas series, and Secret War had a tie-in 2015.
Yeah. And Jimmy Woo, who has been a part of, he was Ant-Man and the Wasp, WandaVision.
There you
go. He's part of the Atlas Foundation in the comic books because the Atlas Foundation in Marvel Comics are the descendants of Genghis Khan, and they want to ensure that they take over the world, so they do it through business means. Now, I've added some flavor text here, like maybe for Shang-Chi 2, Genghis Khan would have been warring with Wenwu when he had the 10 rings back in the history of Asia.
Okay.
So could the 10 rings have essentially shut down Genghis Khan, and then the Agents of Atlas, the Atlas Foundation, has gone into hiding until the death of Wenwu and Shang-Chi 1 would allow the Foundation to take over that power vacuum.
Ooh, I like that theory a lot.
Yeah.
I did not know that Atlas had any connection to Genghis Khan, though that's fascinating.
Yeah, so I think Jimmy Woo was like one of the descendants, and he was supposed to like be part of the agents of Atlas who were supposed to try to take over the world, but he essentially took over the Atlas Foundation, like reformed it as more like a hero organization. And as the rumor continues, that in Shang-Chi 2, Iron Fist would be introduced, and probably the Lin Lee version, not the Danny Rand version.
Okay.
Alongside Amadeus Cho and Luna Snow, both of Asian descent as well. I think Amadeus Cho is like South Korean, or Luna Snow is South Korean. I don't know what Amadeus Cho is, but
Okay.
it seems to be leaning into obviously people from Asia would be descendants of Genghis Khan somehow, and maybe these would be the people part of the agents of Atlas or the Atlas Foundation in this situation.
Yeah, wow. That is a lot of characters that I would not be I was not readily expecting to hear in the MCU again. Iron Fist is a very cool character, very cool concept. The public reaction to the Netflix shows was not great when Iron Fist was involved. So it was, however, a mantle, and so I do think this is a great idea for Marvel to softly kick Danny Rand to the curb, but continue the Iron Fist name. And we had a character believed to be related to Amadeus Cho in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, his mother.
So I would love to see. Okay. Ooh,
Um,
yeah, I would love to see Amadeus Cho.
Yeah, and the other cool thing about that Amadeus Cho reference is that he was rumored to be in a version of Captain America: Brave New World as the person who
Oh,
was helping find out, why Harrison Ford was a Hulk. So
very cool.
yes, because for the comic books, for those who don't know, Amadeus Cho is like one of the smartest kids in the world, or smartest people I think in the world. He was a kid, and he got the Hulk power, so he became the totally awesome Hulk.
Totally awesome Hulk. That's right.
Yeah, and looking up, literally, I just pulled up the Agents of Atlas just to kind of look at the Marvel's fandom site, and I'm like, oh, there's people in here I know. Luna Snow, who is a very recent character, very prominent Marvel Snap, very prominent Marvel Rivals, a South Korean video game created character. She's really cool. Iron Fist, Shang-Chi, Silk as well.
Oh,
And then
very cool.
I see some characters again I would know from Marvel Snap, such as Namora, which
Okay.
that there's also Wave,
Oh, yeah.
Swordmaster, who is actually now the new Iron Fist. So he was Swordmaster, now he's Iron Fist, and Arrow, the character Arrow in Marvel Snap, who moves your character, who's the enemy character last played card over one. I know other card powers, Brian. I just couldn't tell you what they do in the comic books, but it sounds like they've got a plan here. And if they have a production company called Atlas, we got to figure out what it is. Now, is it Atlas? Is it Thor 5? We've had rumors that's working. The Shang-Chi 2 rumors are taken over, so there's a lot of rumors about Shang-Chi 2. And a lot of people wanted to see the character come back since, 2021, 22? Since a solo version, or a solo movie.
Sure.
Black Panther 3, I think, is also a given, but, is that something, how do we tie Atlas into Black Panther 3? I don't know. So a lot of options here, but it's fun to know that if they do Shang-Chi 2, we are going to be getting Iron Fist, because that would be an awesome fight sequences to film and just give us
Yeah.
on screen.
That's a live action battle I'd love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into Avengers Doomsday, which we're coming up on almost a year away. It's March, halfway through March, 13 and a half months away. The studio is apparently looking, Marvel Studios, is looking to bring animated characters into the film proper, a la Roger Rabbit, and
Oh.
Mary Poppins, rather than try to translate the animated characters to live action. Now, This is an
Wow.
addition to Miss Minutes. Like, I think Miss Minutes was a given, right? Because of Loki and the time stream and the multi-universal aspects she involves. So I'm thinking like there's those Spider-Verse characters that are uniquely animated and drawn. What If is a little different because those are based on the MCU characters. Like, so they don't need to translate them. But, Uatu, the Watcher, like, he doesn't have a live act. Like, I guess in Guardians 3 they had something similar, but it was a rough sketch rather than a full character. X-Men 97 was something they could bring in, Brian, along the way. So, is there any other animated people in Marvel's history you'd love to see alongside their live action version?
Recently you and I were talking about the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, and some of his friends in that were White Tiger and a version of Nova that rocked a black and gold suit, and I think both of those characters would be very fascinating to see brought into the MCU.
Yeah.
I had never thought about in this context though. That is very wild to hear that Marvel would be looking into doing this. You look at even though movies like the Spider-Verse though, and they had vastly different animation style characters in the same movie and made it work. So I'm excited to see them try.
Yeah, Spider-Verse even had the live action Donald Glover as the Prowler.
That's a good point.
So, no strangers to that. I think people would be accepting of it and be, a lot of those, the Leo meme, right, where he's leaning forward and pointing at the screen. You're like, I understand that reference. The only character I want to see in here, Brian, that has not been rumored, but I think would just be absolutely batshit crazy is the original Howard the Duck movie version.
Okay.
Like, yes,
sure.
We have the animated version by Seth Green, but
right.
I don't want that one. I want the weird one, the puppet one that about killed people or something. Sponsored by George Lucas. So I think that would be fun. Is there any deep cuts you'd like to see that are animated, I guess?
No, I will keep thinking about that though.
Dolph Lundgren's Punisher, maybe? Maybe you could get
that'd be pretty cool. Who was Nick Fury back? David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury?
The Hasselhoff, yes, we could bring him in. Even that weird, was it Next Men or whatever the X-Men TV pilot was?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could really do and have some fun with.
Sure.
Obviously, we are getting very close to riding like that Crisis on Infinite Earths thing that the CW did with the Arrowverse and bringing in some of those we could Tom, what's his name, Tom Wellington back in from the Superman and all these other, the Superman from the night, Lois and Clark Superman, whatever. His name is. So. I think it'd be fun. If anyone listening has any characters that they want to pull out of the vault, some deep ones, let us know. We would love to hear that. Spider-Man 4. So I teased earlier I had some Spider-Man anecdotes to share. Number one, Brian and I saw Spider-Man 3 together with the Black Suit Spider-Man.
We did.
And we went and we were both kind of came out of there just a little exasperated, if you will, at the end of the day. We were like, what is happening? This is not the Spider-Man we signed up for.
We had walked, I had walked in and out of the first two Spider-Man movies and walked out of them thinking they were some of the greatest movies I'd ever seen in my high school aged brain. And by the time Spider-Man 3 came out, it was college, and I got the vibe that it wasn't me that had really grown out of these movies so much as the movie having some issues. But
right. Well, you're just old and jaded at that point, Brian. We get it. You saw the world was thinking, but. For those who may or may not know, tomorrow is my birthday, and in 2010 I went to a Dave & Buster's in Indianapolis, Indiana, for my birthday. Because if you know anything about me, Brian, you know I love arcade games.
I do.
Games. And at the time, my current wife was there with me. We were not dating; she was just a friend. But we won a life-size black suit Spider-Man. I
remember this thing.
Yes, it's literally sitting beside me in my basement still 15 years later. So it's just so funny. We get to Spider-Man news. I get you, Brian. I've got my black suit Spider-Man. You're still with me after all this time. It's like the one thing I've carried for almost as long as some of my Game Boys. It's like one of those things that, it just it's gonna ride with me forever until then. When I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, it was in the front seat with me the whole time.
Hey, great for the carpool lane.
Great, yeah, exactly. They didn't question him. They didn't pull him. It was like Spider-Man. He needs that ride. But anyways, now we're getting to a proper Spider-Man 4, which is not the sequel to the one we saw in 2008. This is actually
Thankfully
like
not.
this is like what 6 Spider-Man movies, live action Spider-Man movies later. So we've doubled down, and the confirmation this week is that actress Sadie Sink from Stranger Things is cast in the upcoming movie, but we don't know who. And if I showed you a picture of her, Brian, which you know who this actress is. You don't have to even look it
I
up.
do.
Who do you think she's gonna play in Spider-Man's life, Brian?
Well, I would all the money in the world I would bet on it being Mary Jane simply for the fact that she has red hair. But I know that's not the most complicated argument.
Yeah. Well, even Emma Stone was cast as Gwen Stacy. She kind of had red hair as well, right? Like reddish hair that went to blonde.
True.
Now, again, the hardest thing about this finding an image for the show is finding an image of Sadie Sink where she wasn't like a teenager in Stranger Things, because like the cast is
Sure.
like, when you think about it, you're like, oh, she's young, like, but like no, the show's been on so long they've aged up 10 years. So like, yes, she's like a young adult at this point. So it's really fun to find. But yeah, a lot of people are thinking Mary Jane Watson. Now the reason, like, oh, wasn't MJ in the first movie played by Zendaya? Possibly, but is this a Doomsday altered universe where it's a different Mary Jane Watson? Like he's running into,
Wow.
because it's Doomsday, Spider-Man 4, then Secret Wars, so it could be possibly a different version of Mary Jane Watson from another universe. I hope it's not. I hate saying other universe versions. One day
Sure.
we'll not get to say it on the show. Or MJ. What was her name in
Michelle?
Yeah, Michelle Jones, wasn't it?
There we go. That
So,
sounds right.
yeah. So I think that's what we called her, MJ. So it could technically be a Mary Jane Watson, and they could lean into the irony of it later on. But I think this is a good cast. I think when they added this actress into Stranger Things, she actually brought a lot to the cast. The vulnerability. She had the older brother who was, essentially possessed at one point. Grew up in a really, poor kind of broken home scenario. So it's very interesting to, she brought a lot to the show. I think she's a great actress. Brian, I think she'll add a lot to the movie along the way.
Yeah, they've been doing well with these Tom Holland films. I'd love to see them nail it again.
Yeah. I usually casting's not an issue at the end of the day. I don't think I've never been like, ew, that's a bad casting. So cross our fingers. The Last of Us is coming out next month. We're a month away from The Last of Us. And the new season 2 trailer has been released. And have you watched the first season of the show, Brian? I actually didn't ask you before I threw this in here. If you've seen the
Yeah,
first season.
I didn't have a chance to watch this season 2 trailer, but I did watch the first season of The Last of Us whenever it came out.
Yeah. A lot of the teasers have like kind of given like, hey, there's that snow town they end up at the end of it.
Sure.
Little vibes, but it seems like there's going to be some more like greenery and some other vibes along the way. What I would love to see is, obviously the games are always more about like, people are the worst part of the zombie apocalypse, not the zombies. But I would love to see some actual zombies going on here, and it seems to be there might be some big dramatic scenes for the zombies here. So we'll cross our fingers along the way, and you guys can check out that trailer in the show notes. We're gonna shift gears into DC though, Brian. This one you did watch, and it is the Batman State Farm commercial.
Yeah, caught this a couple times.
This is the wildest statement. It's where Jason Bateman, when you need help in Gotham City, you call Batman, not Bateman. And this is the most, like, it's on the nose with Batman, Joker, Riddler, Catwoman, Two-Face. Like, there's no hiding away. Commissioner Gordon, even there's no hiding away from this
Yeah.
cross promotion, Brian. Like it's very much on the nose with everything, and I love it so much. Like this is great for State Farm and Warner Brothers properties all in one.
Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot as well. This was definitely made by a Batman fan. It really comes through how much work they've put into and how much knowledge they have on these different villains and what kind of crimes uh, they could quickly set a scene to make it look like those criminals would be involved in.
Yeah, and obviously, we're fans of Jason Bateman from Arrested Development days and other things he's done afterwards. But like, you mentioned earlier, Will Arnett, his co-star in Arrested Development, was the voice of Lego Batman.
Yes.
In the movies. And I had to look this up a couple times because it looked like the guy who played the new guy was like the Riddler in this trailer, but it's not.
Okay.
The Batman suit apparently is a modified Ben Affleck Batman suit along the way. But they built this fake Gotham and all this other stuff.
And that's a good point too. Is they bothered to make 2 custom Batman suits in this commercial. They put a lot of work into this.
Yeah. And so, like, there's this Poison Ivy, there's a bat suit, the whole thing. I'm just digging it. And then obviously there's some other, references like the artist SZA. She's in here as Catwoman. Jordan Howlett, the guy with the black notebook who looks in the mirror and says, "Come a little closer" on all those reels. He's Commissioner Gordon in this. So, I thought this was really fun. I thought this was a really fun, collaboration and a smart use of it. Like it looks, like you mentioned, it looks good. It looks like Gotham. The references are there. The Joker looks classic Joker, right? So
I was at my parents' house one of the times this came on TV, and my mom actually gasped when they showed Two-Face's face, which I thought was a pretty good compliment to the makeup work there.
Yeah. So so there's a bunch of little commercials, but we strung them all. We uploaded the extended edition with all the little ones here. So, this is just a really fun thing. I don't want to see too many of these things happen, Brian. But the Allstate has the Mayhem guy, but like if State Farm keeps up with like, DC stuff, count me in. Like maybe it's not Batman. Like is Superman next or Wonder Woman? Like what other things can they do here?
Sure. Yeah, I would not hate if this is the start of a campaign.
Yeah, a year-long campaign. I'm actually disappointed that they missed the Super Bowl with this one. Like this would have been fantastic Super Bowl material to talk about. So sometimes it's not about being the first to market. Sometimes it's about the best idea. So kudos to them. DC's doing a Lantern show, which I'm very excited for, Brian. You know my love for Green Lantern. I think I even shared it with you at one point.
You did. If you ever got your revenge on me with Marvel Civil War, it was introducing me to DC's War of Light, which got me very into Green Lantern. I am very excited for this project, and when the first photo of some of the actors got released, it was very exciting to me to hear that this project was moving forward.
Yeah. So they are filming it, and I think last week or last time, 2 episodes ago, they had the reveal with the photos of Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, not Tonight Show with Jon Stewart, the other one, or whatever, the Daily Show. So
there we go.
But Lanterns is moving along, and one of the actresses has revealed that the Guardians of the Universe and the Sinestro Corps will be in the show.
Wow.
Her quote was, "We have all the characters we know and love: the Lanterns, the Guardians, Sinestros, and that world is still intact, and everyone is presented as heroes and villains at the same time." So we know this is DCU set, so this will live alongside Superman, which is coming out later this year, and all the other DC projects, Supergirl. Not Swamp Thing? What's the other? Clayface, the other 3 proper
Clayface
things, and Peacemaker. So we'll all live alongside it. It's kind of Earth-based set, but like the Guardians are the most interesting part of this. Not the Sinestro Corps. I think we all understand that from all the Green Lantern stuff, right? He's yellow, they use fear, but the Guardians are essentially the kind of like the Watchers, but short. Like if the Watchers from Marvels were shorter and blue, that's what these people would be. right? Like the parallel.
Yeah, they're definitely not human, hominoid or Homo sapien proportions.
Mm-hmm.
And it visually, I think I would think this adds, including the Guardians, would raise your budget on your show quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So cool to see that it's happening.
Yeah, and I think it's important if you know the Green Lantern Corps are essentially space cops and they report to the Guardians of the Universe, who actually keep some secrets from them along the way, like all the other colors of the lanterns. So it's fun to have them in there. That just means that like the lore and the foundation of the bigger Green Lantern mythos are there at the end of the day. Not just in Brightest Day or Blackest Night kind of creed. It's like, yeah, Brightest Day and Blackest Night were actually events which were really, really cool. So I think this will pay off like in the long run for people who like Green Lantern and maybe want to know more about them along the way.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds played Green Lantern in the film a couple years back, and he's been pretty vocal, or at least not shy about joking about the quality of the movie throughout his Deadpool appearances. And I'm very glad to see that the studio isn't shy about giving us another Green Lantern property.
Well,
I definitely think it
I
has
think they
the room to
were,
work.
but I think James Gunn is not shy about it. I think he's like, yeah, people understand space heroes now. Like he did Guardians of the Galaxy 1, 2, and 3, right? Like people
Yeah.
get, if they're from space and they have powers, but they're humans, they get it now, and I think that'll lean into. He's even leaning into the bowl cut Green Lantern.
That's
Nathan
right.
Fillion in his movie. So
Guy Gardner.
Guy Gardner himself. So I'm excited to see how all these kind of play together and show up on screen over time.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah. Speaking of fun DCU stuff, this is an interesting rumor that Peter Safran is possibly the lead to take over the Warner Brothers movie division from I don't know if the people are currently stepping down, retiring, whatever, but he would move away from DCU and do Warner Brother movies as the producer or maybe president, and James Gunn would be the sole DCU lead. So
Wow.
Peter Safran's just a name to me. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup, but I know he does a lot of stuff on the back end of movies and has done a lot of stuff on the back end of movies before. So
I mean, this sounds like a dream come true for James Gunn, though. Getting full control over basically a universe.
yeah, and I think it if he's proved himself this long, I think it might, if Superman fails, or at least doesn't, maybe it won't fail. Maybe if it like lands in the middle, it doesn't make quite enough money to make records and lands, kind of just lukewarm or even warm instead of hot on reception. Peter Safran, I think, is still a safe bet to maintain anything at Warner Brothers he wants because he's a producer, right? Like James Gunn has been the vocal face and voice and everything for Superman. So I think even if it, the DCU is like, oh, we're going to nix it after 3 movies. James Gunn, you're out. We got somebody else in. Peter Safran will probably still maintain his role because that's how corporate entities work somehow.
Okay.
And he's done a lot of other producing over time. So I think that'd be maybe one way to split him up and keep him safe from that. Like, I don't think there's problems. I think you agree with that. There's no problems with them. It's just very uncertain how Superman's going to land later this year.
Yeah. It's a very well, it's one of the oldest heroes we have, and there have been some great, truly great superhero movie moments from Superman, and some truly terrible superhero movie moments from Superman as well. So I think it's a movie with a lot of eyes on it. But I love everything I've seen so far.
What's our favorite phrase? You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. So
that's right.
It's one of those situations. Also given to us by Batman and Warner Brothers. So kudos.
Shout out DCU.
And also we didn't cover this on the reports from James Gunn and Peter Safran a couple weeks ago, but just reiterating that the current plans for the DCU is to release 2 live action films and 1 animated film per year in cinemas. and the same as for Max, where they do 2 live action series and 1 animated series per year on Max.
Wow.
This year we have Superman, and then Peacemaker.
Okay.
And I don't know what the animated series will be, but next year it's Supergirl and Clayface, and then I don't know what and probably Creature Commando season 2, but I don't know what the live action, or maybe Lanterns will be one of the series. So we're missing 1 live action series next year. It doesn't sound, it sounds like a lot, but when you put it on paper, maybe it's not as much as we think it is. At the end of the day, but it is a very slow burn to build a universe that's already existing.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the animated movies are part of that Tomorrowverse at this point.
No, the ones he would be
Okay.
doing are anything. They still have the it's not Tomorrow. What is that called? What DC's multiverse? We both know what we're talking about.
DCEU?
No, it's
Oh, Otherworlds.
Otherworlds. There it is, Otherworlds. I think these are all supposed to be tied in together. Or at least
Okay.
they're trying to make as much as they can together. Kind of like how Creature Commandos is tied to Superman.
I'm a little behind on my Tomorrowverse knowledge, but I was a huge fan of the DC animated universe prior to that, and it's very exciting for me to see that Warner Brothers is committing to animated films moving forward because, yeah, they've had a lot of good ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will say Teen Titans Go to the Movies, absolutely fantastic.
You really had to drag me kicking and screaming to watch that, and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah,
A
it's
lot of fun.
it's a hard sell on paper, but when you watch it, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I get it. Same thing with Lego Batman, right?
Phenomenal movie.
So there's some smaller stuff, and we know they have the Robins half CGI, half puppet / live action movie coming out that we've talked about. But if they do animated movies, I don't know what they're going to be. But like I said, I hope they maintain the adaptations of comic books to animated films.
Yeah.
That's been great. They just did Watchmen 1 and 2, Crisis on Infinite Earths 1 through 3. I think there's still a lot of streaming / VOD potential for those movies that aren't in this plan along the way.
Yeah.
So
I'd agree.
that don't need to connect, that they can tell the other world stories. Like Gotham by Gaslight, I think might have been.
Oh, great. Yeah.
It
That
might
was a
have been
great
one.
movie.
Yeah. But there's other stuff they could tell. Like I would love I'm gonna say it again, the War of Light, the Green Lanterns War of Light animated would be a fantastic 3-piece animated thing, and it's something they could only do in animation too. So
Yeah.
we'll knock on wood for that. Moving into Star Wars here, a couple more topics before I let you free, Brian, and I appreciate you bearing with me here. But Star Wars Underworld, I don't know if you remember this project that George Lucas was working on well before he sold Star Wars to Disney. It was a live-action series set on the multiple levels of Coruscant underneath the main world.
I do remember this premise and when this was being talked about and how it kind of felt weird when it kind of quietly disappeared.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to hear about it again.
Yeah, I would say a lot of it would probably be built off that one scene in Attack of the Clones where Obi-Wan and Anakin end up in that bar, somehow underneath the levels of Coruscant, and they kind of built a little bit of it out in the Clone Wars season 6 or 7 where Ahsoka was at the beginning of the show. But
yeah.
and I think there might even be a canceled or the pilot or a rough pilot that was filmed somewhere online. But Rick McCallum, who is a known producer, assistant on making George Lucas bring his stuff to life, has talked about this canceled show. And each episode, according to him, was going to cost around $40 million based on the technology at the time.
Wow.
So each episode was about an hour long, bigger than the movies, and that's the cheapest he said he could get per episodes. And you have to understand, George Lucas was somebody who, I don't think he announced things that he didn't intend to bring to life, and he had 60 episodes planned, and I'm pretty sure all 60 scripts were completed for the show as well. It wasn't we have an idea, like there are 60 scripts for this show sitting around somewhere in a vault, waiting to be hopefully leaked to the public at some point.
That makes me itch just hearing it. I want to read all of those scripts.
Yeah.
Um, uh, $40 million is a fascinatingly high number. So that also makes me want to read these scripts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to see this move forward.
That's a $2.4 billion, if my math is right. Be
Wow.
400 billion for 10, and then times 6 would be, yeah. So it's just wild to think of that kind of cost, because like, that's like movies don't even cost that much, right? But I mean, also you're getting like 60 hours of content. So if you break it up, is it really like, 4 million for an hour of content? Or what? I don't know. It's not the math. The math is wrong. But like, what I'm saying? Like it's really not a lot. Like, but like technology's come so far. I would love to have them reevaluate what this would cost today based on the stuff we have available to make come true. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, got to imagine some of these things are cheaper to do.
yeah, with that. Because I also sit here and I think about Star Wars Detours. Remember the Seth Green
Oh yeah.
show that they made and they never
Okay.
released? So like, there's
Okay.
episodes of that exist out there that I would love to watch. We have the one leaked episode with like Zuckuss and the other bounty hunter that looks the same in Dexter Jettster's diner. So I'm like, oh, those would be fun. So like, there's a bunch of Star Wars stuff out there that was made that just never got to see the light of day, and I would love to know what that is and get our hands on it. But
Agreed.
the Underworld definitely would probably. I think there was like what was it, Star Wars, was it like level 66 or something weird like that. It was a video game they were making. They canceled as well. That was set underneath Coruscant.
Yes.
They really love the idea of Coruscant, but not telling us what's under the shell along the way.
That they do.
And then I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Andor comes out next month as well in April. So we'll be able to dive back into Star Wars a little bit because I feel like we've not been there in a hot minute. I know we had some stuff, the Acolyte, and was that it? I feel like
Was that Ahsoka the same year? Or?
no, the Acolyte was the last one.
Okay.
Anyway, we need some Star Wars, Brian. I need to see some Star Wars. So, less is more is making me want it. And then we also have Star Wars Celebration coming up. I think it's in Japan this year. So we'll have some Star Wars information coming up on I think May the 4th with us. Moving on, Avatar: Fire and Ash, the third Avatar movie, will be longer than the second one per James Cameron, and the second one was 3 hours and 12 minutes. So at this point, he doesn't give a fuck about how long you think movies should be. He's just doing what he wants.
How many times you have to go to the bathroom does not matter to this man.
No, he will put anything in theaters at this point. And as we always say on the show, never bet against James Cameron, because I'm not a huge fan of the first Avatar movie, but the second one just blows me away. I was very enthralled. I got to watch it at Disney World on a laser projector, and it was just it was a really fun experience. But I didn't feel the 3 hours and 12 minutes at all. So that to me was awesome. This kind of a good film. I'm also excited to there's a rumor that there's a time jump in this. Along the way, because they stopped filming it because they wanted, like, the kids needed to age up a bit. That they were using. I forget how long ago they filmed this movie at this point, so I'm interested to see what they've done with the third movie as well.
They filmed this at the same time as they filmed the last movie for the most part, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think they filmed 2 and 3 back to back at the same time.
That is fascinating to hear that holding off on shooting to allow actors to age in real life is a very fascinating update in a movie's production story, and I am very intrigued by James Cameron being the one to make that decision.
Yeah. I just looked it up. They started filming Way of Water and Fire and Ash simultaneously in 2017.
Wow.
And they completed it in 2020.
Wow. Some of this footage is going to be almost 10 years old.
Yeah. Exactly.
time
And like, you know, they've been working on, obviously we talked about the effects, bringing it to life, making it look good. James Cameron doesn't do what James Cameron does because James Cameron. James Cameron's does what James Cameron does because the world needs him to. So
That's right.
He's raising the bar. I'm just excited. Like, you know, as a film person and a technology person, that's great. As a story person, they're very simple stories, but it's really, I would love to know how they made these movies. Like the Avatar documentary, when this is done, is going to be where I live. When these 5 movies get pushed out, or like, was it like Lord of the Rings people watch the extended editions? I would love to see the extended editions of Avatar when they're all said and done.
Yep. I could listen easily to 3 hours and 12 minutes of how was this movie was made and how some of these visuals were accomplished.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to confirm the time jump things here. 7 years building the movie, 4 years shooting it, and then stuff like that. So yeah, it might be the next one. Maybe the 4th one has a time jump. But either way, this is gonna be great. I'm excited to dive back into this to see the fire Navi. You know, another elemental version. We are like one element away from having Avatar: The Last Airbender on this planet. So
That's right.
very excited for that.
Was this the first time we'd heard Fire and Ash as the title?
No, the title's been out
Okay.
for a while now. It was like rumored to be called the Seed Bearer as one of the
Okay.
opportunities. They had a bunch of items. I think Fire and Ash might have been in there, but it definitely lets me know that yes, we will be seeing lava fire Navi in this title. So I think that's interesting. And
Very cool.
Yeah, I know. I would love to revisit the other 2 if I had again 5.5 hours, 6 hours to set aside to watch them beforehand, but. We'll see. We'll see if I just need to do like a recap along the way. Brian, thank you so much for jumping in today, being a guest on the show. I hope you had a good time. This was some fun topics to talk about today, and
Yeah, this was a blast.
and obviously your connection with comic books and the topics, you know, top notch. So thank you for bringing that in there. But if again you mentioned the top of the show, but if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find all that stuff at?
Well, I'm Picket Fence 14 on most social networks. I'm also punreliable on most social networks, and I have a Linktree page with punreliable as the username, and that links to all my projects.
Awesome. Yes, and that's linked in the show notes as well if people want to click on that. As usual, you can find me at Valdan, Valdan, on most social networks, including video games as well. Where Brian and I play video games together sometimes. So
We do.
we do that. But Brian, you said before we started recording that you're going to try to wrap up the show for us. Let's see if you can bring it home for us.
Yes, this is such an honor. As always, please visit superheroslate.com, where you can find us at Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and more. We also have a store with swag at superheroslate.com/store.
Awesome. Yes, and if people, you know, if they want to be a super fan, Brian, how do people become super fans? Do you remember?
Uh, 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 like and subscribe and share the show with 3 people.
Well, that's one way. So share a show with a buddy, share a show with a friend,